Welcome to Mom Days, a beautiful collective of mamas and experts sharing wisdom, inspiration, and life hacks to support us on this journey through the hazy days of motherhood. Welcome to this week's episode of the Mom Days podcast. I'm Holly Lowe, your host, and I am so excited today to have our guest, Jennifer Redmond, joining us. She is an incredible certified integrative nutrition health coach. And the part that really grabs my heart is that she has a passion for helping mamas and families who are dealing with secondary infertility, a term maybe some of us haven't heard much about. And I really didn't know what it even meant until I walked through this in a journey of my own. So welcome, Jennifer. And I want you to give us just a little snippet or background of, how long you've been doing this and why you love doing this.
Yeah. Well, thank you. First of all, Holly, I'm so happy to be here. And fertility is a topic that's near and dear to my heart. I've worked in the infertility space for like 17 years, I think now. I started as a writer and editor in the infertility space. And through all my years of experience in that, like interviewing doctors all over the country, reporting on it, I was the editor-in-chief of a digital media company that focused on infertility. And what I realized through all that was that in the infertility space, so many of us are just focused on the illness and not focused on wellness. And it's a fact that your fertility is more than your reproductive system, right? So I went back to school. I studied integrative nutrition. And I've also had the privilege of studying with Dr. Aviva Ram. I don't know if you or your listeners are familiar with her. And became a health coach to specifically support women with infertility. And I'm also a former fertility patient. So I get it from both the professional piece and the personal piece. So it's just super important to me. As you alluded to, particularly when it comes to secondary infertility, it comes as like a total shock for many women. So that's a little bit about what I do.
Well, and even I think I remember seeing the term for the first time as I was. So I'll tell you really quickly. So I'm now in my 40s. We've been trying for 2 years to have another child. We have 3 babies. I've been pregnant 5 times. We lost one near the end of the first trimester after my first baby, and then had my second as my rainbow baby, and then had our third, fairly close together there. And then, thought, maybe we're done, maybe we're not. I was 30. When was he born? I was 38 when he was born, I believe. And I've never in my whole life, from the moment I was able to have a period and potentially conceive, I have never had health issues. I am one of the healthiest people I've ever known. Never been on medications. I remember I used birth control for like 3 months right before we got married and right after we got married. And I ended up having such crazy mental health issues from it that I ran the other way. So I've never had issues. I've never, struggled. And we quite literally got pregnant without even a thought, put it that way. Didn't have to plan. I knew my body. I knew my cycles. I was very predictable. So all that to say that when, we did decide, I thought, yes, I am older. I know I'm over 40 now, but I've had clients right into 46 have their first and second or fifth baby. So I never considered that this could be, never entered my mind. And I remember after a year of going, we had another miscarriage in there. And I remember thinking, that's odd that hormonally everything looks normal. My cycles are normal and nothing has changed. And age-wise, I'm good physically. And I looked it up, and I remember looking at it for the first time, and that term came up, secondary infertility. And I was like, it's a thing. That can't possibly be me. So what do you say to moms or to women who have had either one baby or maybe have had one or two, and suddenly this is presenting itself, and not always an age issue. It could be all kinds of things.
Right.
What's that first step? Like,
Yeah. And that's such a good point. It can be all kinds of things. And I think that like you said, like you haven't even heard of the term, right? Most people don't even know it exists. When in fact, today, secondary infertility, I think, is the most common form of infertility right now.
Wow.
So, and some of it is age related.
Yes.
But things can also happen between that last pregnancy and now that maybe you don't even realize your hormones are off now. There can be a number of things. So, the first thing that I say is, like, let's take a deep breath. Let's try and figure out what the root cause is. If you haven't, if you've been trying for a while and it's not happening, or you've had recurrent miscarriage or even one miscarriage, maybe you should see a specialist and get a workup and find out, what is my ovarian reserve, the number of eggs that I have, what does that look like? Or what are my hormone levels look like?
Yeah.
And then just there are things you can start to look at. Like I said, I think the first thing is take a deep breath, right? Like, and then let's explore and see if we can get to the root cause. It
Absolutely.
doesn't mean you're automatically going to fertility treatment by any means, but just to sort of get a good picture of what's happening with your body.
For sure, absolutely, and I love that you said that because we can I know that we can sometimes either push it aside and just think, "Oh, it's not gonna work anymore," and
Mhm.
that's that. But then there are people like I know myself, and I've had many friends and family, friends and friends of friends and all, the acquaintances that we have over the years through this business and as a birth professional that you meet who are like, "Oh, I would have loved to have had more, it just didn't work out." And you go, "Well, if was there more you could have done?" And they're sometimes they're saying no, it wasn't such a big, it wasn't, they were okay to move on. But then you meet those like me who are like, I know I'm supposed to have more. It's just that burning feeling that this will have to work somehow. uh,
Yeah.
where do you so kind of backing up a little bit, where do you say, I know I've read this a few places where when you're over, they say when you're over 38, they consider 38, I think, geriatric pregnancies, which I thought was
Geriatric pregnancy. Thank you very
really
much.
funny. I was like, yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah.
But I know that up to a certain point, they say if you've been trying for X number of months, this is
Mhm.
when you should be looking at getting a workup done. If
Right.
you're over this age, this amount of time you should be getting. Do you have,
Right.
what's a
Yeah.
good time frame for that?
Yeah, so they generally say if you're under 35 and you've been trying for a year
Okay.
unsuccessfully, then to see a specialist. And if you're 35 or older and 6 months, then to see a specialist.
So good to know. Because
Hmm.
having that realistic idea, again, I've had moms, between 25 to 35 in there who try for 3 months and run off to get fertility help. And
Right.
not to say you can't. I mean, you can find out if
Sure.
everything's working fine.
Sure.
But it is good to have a realistic idea so that you're not getting frustrated or concerned or worried and worked up over
Right.
a time frame when the reality is it could take a year for your body to get into that rhythm. And
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
So in that time, for someone like yourself, if somebody has, we'll take it twofold. If somebody is in, let's say, that 1 year time frame, are there
Yep.
things we can do to just better our chances throughout that process before we take that next step?
Yeah, yeah. So definitely. So if we're thinking about something like egg quality, right?
Mhm.
An egg takes about 3 months to mature, so 90 days. So if you can do some things to really kind of clean up your diet, and what I call kind of green up your lifestyle,
Yeah,
like that can be helpful. So, I think it's certainly an individualized approach, right? Like everybody's different. Everybody's reason for not getting pregnant is different. Even if you had PCOS or endometriosis, you're an individual, and your situation
right.
is unique. But I think the first thing is to really think about really eating, really increasing your intake of produce, fruits, and vegetables. Really, I like to say, eat the rainbow. So you think about all the colors in the rainbow so that you're getting a variety of nutrients from all the foods that you're eating. I would say all women who are trying to conceive should be on a prenatal vitamin. So even if it's not happening yet, don't wait. It's a good
Absolutely.
time period to start prepping your body.
I was actually surprised how many women didn't know that. I think
Yeah,
I actually learned that quite early on, and probably just because I was in that atmosphere of as a doula before I had children. I was
right,
learning this from midwives and things like that. But it isn't common knowledge to just
right,
get on
right.
a needle vitamin as soon as you're of childbearing age to start, get your body ready.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Most women can benefit from what's known as like a Mediterranean style diet
Mhm.
when you're trying to conceive. So that's heavier on produce, healthy sources of protein, not a lot of red meat. So getting your protein from sources like wild fish, less chicken, um, beans, and whole grains. So if you think about what a Mediterranean diet looks like, that's generally a really good example of how to eat if you're trying to conceive. And I would say eating organic as much as you can is really important. There was one study that showed that women with the highest pesticide loads in their systems had
Mm,
I think it was like a 35% less chance of pregnancy.
interesting.
So just to show you, those chemicals in our environment. And then when it comes to, if you eat dairy or if you eat meat, organic is really important because um, hormones, that are in animals, just the way that they're processed, again,
Yeah,
the pesticides, antibiotics, all that, you just don't really want that in your system.
yeah.
So often, we just sort of think about starting with the food piece. What are some, shifts that you can make there without, if you have a family, right, and you're already trying to put dinner on the table, don't want it to be like super hard. Like now I'm, cooking for, this many different things for this many people, but
Exactly.
just easy ways to incorporate those changes into your diet, I think, is a really good place to start.
That's good. That's yeah, it's true when you're looking at us, these are families or we're a family with, I've got three little ones and not so little and little. Thankfully
Right.
my kids are really good eaters, so the Mediterranean diet works beautifully in our house. We eat
That's
vegan at
awesome.
home most of the time. But we just leave it up to them. It's their choice how they want to
Yeah.
do it. But I really felt a huge shift when I removed animal products, and it's not for everyone. You have to. We do
Right.
do we do fish and we do eggs. So just because we have access to farm eggs and no
Right.
antibiotics, that type of thing. But we were able to kind of customize that to what our bodies wanted and needed. But I really did feel, even in monthly periods, even just not having cramping and less inflammation. And so yeah, it's worth. I really encourage women. It's worth trying that out. It's worth giving it its time, even if you did a 90 days of
Totally.
right, and let's see
Totally.
how our body responds. And oftentimes when you give it enough time, you'll crave the good things. That's
Right.
even my 13-year-old says this. He's like, when we
Right.
have salads almost every day, and if we don't, he'll say, can I just make a salad? I actually am craving a salad.
That's awesome. And that's such a good point that you make, because I think um once we start tuning into it, like we'll get the signals our body
Yeah.
is giving us. Like if your body's responding to what you're eating, like in your example, right? Like, oh wait, my periods are less crampy, my flow is maybe shorter, my periods more regular.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think not only like removing things from your diet, but then really paying attention to what's happening.
Yeah.
A lot of times, my clients will fill out for a few days what I call a food, mood, and poop journal. You might have heard of this.
It's
And
amazing.
so it's
Best
like,
thing I ever did. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
just really helping you to tune into your body, and then to also make sure that you're pooping every day, because that just eliminates the toxins.
Yeah, and well, that's the thing is this toxic load, this toxic buildup, it affects us in so many ways. But I think also we're moving into generations of women who aren't as tuned into their bodies because we're
Mhm.
busy, right? We miss the signals until it's yelling at us, right?
Yeah,
We miss it until it is PCOS or until we have endometriosis symptoms or things are
right,
actually getting to a crisis state. And then we go, oh, well, where did this come from? When the
right,
reality was it was probably talking to us through, a skin rash a year ago or
right.
right, or just
Yeah.
bloating or things that you just put up with or over the counter deal with. Yeah, I think it is the journaling was really eye opening for me, so much so that again I did it with my kids because
Oh.
I was seeing mood. It was mostly mood. It was just focus and
Mhm.
attention and mood issues for them.
Right.
which were subtle. And I just figured, why not? I mean, if I saw such a shift, I could do this with them as well. And again, my oldest is very intuitive. So he was really good at saying like what he feels he needs and what he feels affected him. So when you kind of, and again, this is a little off topic, but I think if we are empowered with specialists like you, we're empowered with the language and the
Hmm.
ability to tune in. It's really cool how we can then turn around and empower other people, or even ourselves,
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
how to vocalize that.
Right. Many years ago, I did an elimination diet just because I thought, I'm learning about this. I'm going to try it and see. Excuse me. And I didn't realize that gluten makes me congested. I had no idea. I thought I didn't know what it was. And I'd gone to doctors and I'd gone to specialists. And I was like, I just feel like I'm always congested and my ears are kind of full and, nothing, nothing, nothing. And then I removed gluten and I was like, holy cow, what just happened? Like,
Where'd it go? Yep. That's my youngest, my 6-year-old, and we always thought it was he does have his seasonal allergies, which I can take care of
right,
naturally, no problem for him. But it was beyond that. It was just all year long, and he would snore really heavy and and we don't
right.
we're completely dairy freaks. My daughter has a dairy allergy, so he's never had dairy in his life. So I was like, it's not that. I know that causes it too. So it wasn't until we started eliminating gluten. It's amazing, right? Our body is just in our gut, but again, our foods are not the way they were. Our
Right,
processing is so high,
right.
and it's no
Exactly.
wonder with, like you said, with the pesticides. It's no wonder our reproductive systems have an issue with that because
Right.
our gut's so closely connected to everything down there as well,
Everything.
right? Yeah,
Everything. And inflammation is connected to everything.
yeah.
And so if you're eating a food that's causing an inflammatory response, which many women will do well with eliminating dairy too for a period of time, because that can be, you just said that, that can be inflammatory. So, and again, it doesn't have to be forever,
Yeah.
because sometimes our bodies can reset. Like our bodies have this amazing ability to repair themselves, kind of given the chance, right? So it
Well, and I
doesn't have
think
to be.
we overdo it. We're in a eating habit, and especially in North
Mhm,
America, where we're
mhm.
so heavy on the meat, white grains,
Yep.
and dairy. Those are like our main food groups, right? I feel like
Totally.
you need to take the. I love using the raw pyramid, the raw food pyramid, or the holistic food pyramid because it's top heavy with everything raw, green, leafy, dark,
Yep.
all those rainbows,
Yep.
and all that other stuff kind of gets filtered down throughout. And
Yep.
like you said, take it out for a time. Even I tell a lot of my mamas, I'm like, even just go 6 months. If you can even slowly wean yourself off things like dairy and red meats for a while, you
Yeah.
might have certain points in your month where you crave some red meat, have it, right? Eat
Right.
it. But
Right.
when we eliminate it to the point where we can just back it up and then
Right.
go, yeah, you know what, I can do without that. I still want a bit of that. I don't know. I just feel like in some things, I feel it should be an all or nothing deal. With dairy, and that's just from working with specialists with my daughter. There
Mhm.
was no safe amount of dairy for her. And we learned a lot about the proteins in dairy and how long it takes to clear them from your body. So I always tell people if you're going to eliminate dairy, eliminate it. Like just get it
Right.
out,
Right.
go try for a while, give it about 3 months. Those 90-day windows are really important to work.
Totally. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then see where you're at.
Absolutely.
Bring it in slowly and see what your body says.
Yeah. Just listen. Just listen.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. And I think, that we also have to realize that there's no such thing as like mostly gluten free or mostly
Great.
dairy free,
I
because
love
it's so
that you said
easy
that.
to let things sneak in. So
Do
if
you
you're going to do
do you hear that from people? Do you hear
it,
that? Well, I only have a little bit.
yeah.
I only put milk in my coffee once a
Right.
day. That
Right.
was my,
Right.
I have so many people in my life who are like that, but I only have one yogurt once a day.
Right. Right. Right.
That'll
So
take me about 2 weeks to get rid of.
yeah, and then to your point earlier about your son with the salads, what happens is when you start eating all this good stuff and all the stuff that your body's really responding to and is really nourishing your body, then you kind of crowd out the bad stuff. Like you almost don't even realize you're not getting it because it's taking up all this good stuff is taking up room and filling you up and really nourishing you. So it's
Absolutely.
cool. That's a cool concept.
What would you say, talking about nutrients and just getting the biggest bang we can for our bodies? I mean, we know our foods, and even if you ate a completely vegan raw diet, you're still going to miss because our food just doesn't have the impact it needs anymore. So
Right.
where do you go with that? Is that something that you advise on? Do you give information on how to supplement from there?
Yeah, so I don't So it's sort of out of my scope of service to recommend specific supplements. I can educate about them, but I can't really recommend them. I will say from a supplement perspective, it's great to get as much as you can from your food, but then there definitely are instances where you do have to supplement. Like studies have shown really, the powerful effects of vitamin D with fertility.
Yes.
I know some fertility specialists that have started prescribing CoQ10,
Yeah.
which is an antioxidant, or even prescribing, which you could get at a health food store, but like acai capsules,
Yeah.
because they're really high in antioxidants. Some, yeah, there's a wide range of them, but I would say, every woman, as we said, can benefit from the prenatal vitamin. And then, I would just sort of talk to your specialist about those other things. But
Yeah.
there have been some good studies around supplementation, definitely.
That's good to know. Yeah, and that's something personally I work with a naturopath, so if that's an option for
Oh,
people, they're great for that too because they do
mhm.
have a pretty good, clear line on what supplements work for what. And it's funny you said that. So CoQ10 was one that my naturopath started me on based on my blood work.
Yeah.
Um, and then NAC, which I know has been taken off the
Mhm.
market, I think in the US, right? They've
Yeah.
removed.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So I don't know if everyone's going to come here to get it now or if they're taking it out of Canada too. I'm not sure, it's been a good one. It works really well for that as well. But having some of those antioxidants rich foods too, I
Mhm.
think when you realize that's what those are for, it
Right.
helps. It helped me when I said to her, "What's the CoQ10 for?" What's because I didn't think of. I'm like, I'm not that old. I'm
Right. Right.
not
Right.
drinking yet. Like my joints are good and all these. She's like, no, 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 that's not what we're doing here. So when you have a bit of an understanding of what it's doing, then even looking for some of those, like you said, the ACI and things that are higher antioxidants, and
Right.
your fresh berries and your
Exactly.
all the things
Yeah.
that are going to support that anyway. That's
Yeah. Yeah.
it's only
Yeah.
beneficial all around
Mhm.
either way.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I love that. So I want to know a little bit about what you are doing program wise or what people can do. So I know you and I had talked briefly about, so I have a fertility cleanse program that we run on our website. It's simply, like I said, it's just to get people down to kind of get your gut to ground zero and get you
Mhm.
cleaned up and ready for the next step. So
Yep.
I liked that because a lot of people didn't know, how to eliminate things or how to even get started. So that was
Right.
more, yeah, it's just more an introduction to here's why we're doing some of
Mhm.
the nutritional changes. And then I like to hand them off to someone like you and say, now
Mhm.
that's your area of expertise. Let's
Right.
hear.
Yeah.
So what is
Awesome.
something that they can do as a next step then?
Awesome. And I love that idea of doing like that gut reset, because just like inflammation is linked to all health, like your gut health is linked to all health, so that's such an important piece. Yeah, so I work with clients in two ways. I work with them in a one-on-one program. It's a 4-month program. We generally start with the food piece. I have certain phases of my program that I bring my clients through, but we generally always start with the food, and then I just kind of meet them where they're at. So depending on what their need is. So often, very quickly, we get into the mind-body piece, and we start working on stress reduction,
Mm, so important.
finding the tools that are going to work for them. Meditation is often a big part of it. Sometimes, depending on the person, it's journaling or just establishing a gratitude practice, so sort of whatever that looks like for them. We also look at the role exercise and movement plays in their life. We look at just sort of, it's a really holistic approach. So, I start with this sort of health history review. It's a health history that I give them, not sort of the one you would get at a regular doctor. I'm not a doctor. Um, that you would get at your MD's office. Looking at everything from, your health and past, your menstrual health, the health of your family, what you ate as a child, what you eat now, the role that sports and exercise plays in your life. How are you sleeping? All
Mm,
those things. And then we really take this kind of holistic approach just to leave no stone unturned in looking at what might be the root causes and helping get them to find balance in their body and ultimately, boost their fertility. So that's one way that I work with women. And then the other thing that I'm doing that I'm super excited about is I'm launching a group program that's actually going to start on Tuesday evening.
yay.
It's via Zoom because we're all still, not meeting in person yet. But
Well, it gives you bigger reach as well, right?
Yeah, which is great, which
Yeah.
is great. Yeah. And so I'm co-leading it with a woman named Carrie Hines, who is the founder and creator of Fertile Body Yoga.
Oh,
And
awesome.
so it's gonna be, I'm super excited about it. Honestly, I wish I had this when I was going through fertility treatment, which is one of the reasons that we did it.
Right.
So it's a 5-week program. Every week there's going to be a live training. So on things like what we just talked about, nutrition and fertility, stress management. What else? We have a session on, I'm just looking, a session on balance where we're going to talk about, sort of looking at your cycle, but then also that sort of like greening up your lifestyle, eliminating
Mhm.
toxins, that sort of thing. We're going to talk about self-care. And so there's going to be a training and a Q&A every week. Carrie is going to lead a short meditation and a 30-minute fertility yoga practice. And then we have a private portal where we can connect and answer questions and support each other in between our sessions. And we're actually also doing this we've brought in some fertility experts, fertility doctors, who are also going to be available on our in our interactive message chat to sort of
Wow.
answer specific questions. So it's super comprehensive, and I think it's just going to be this really nice container, for women. It's 5 weeks, once a week, and yeah, I'm really, really excited about
How do I sign up?
it.
Do you still have room?
We do. We are keeping it small. We have a few spots left, but yeah. So if you don't mind, I will tell you where people can sign
Please.
up
Yeah.
on my website, which is Jen Redmond, JENNREDMOND.com/foundations. The name of the program is Fertility Foundations. And
Okay.
that's what we're hoping you do. At the end of 5 weeks, you've just sort of built this stronger, more fertile foundation. So yeah, I'm super jazzed about
I
it.
love it. Well, you know what? The great thing is I can actually pull that into our program is called Fertile Ground. So there you go. We know the foundations are important, right?
So
So I'll
important.
pull your info into that as well. So they have access.
Oh, thank you.
I always want a next step. Like I don't want people just to do this and then go, now what? I
Now what
want them to
happens?
be
Yeah,
guided to a next step. So that's beautiful that you guys are doing that. And I love it. And if I
thanks.
can help in any way, I'm happy to help.
Thank you so much. Thank
That'll
you.
be I know that'll be something that, especially when you're talking about secondary infertility, mamas sometimes aren't, they're busy, right? And you're raising other kids, and being able to pop on and be a part of a community,
Yeah,
that support is golden. And I've sought that out, and I've been, loving that, and just having the opportunity, even to meet people like yourself, but even working with other moms and other fertility doctors and being able to get to know what their views are on this, and how
right,
to support each other in a holistic manner, because we have all the medical options available to us, and you can walk in and find that out. That's very common.
right.
But to even know what those steps are, and to have somebody, in a way, virtually hold your hand and
Yeah,
say, I get it.
yeah, yeah,
That's really
absolutely.
important.
And I think that's such an important point about the community because particularly, I mean, for all women going through infertility, a lot of women just don't realize how many other women are dealing with it. And I think I've heard from my clients with secondary infertility that there's almost like this stigma, like, well, you already have kids. Why aren't
Yes.
you happy with what you have,
Oh my
right?
gosh. Yes.
And so it's
Yeah.
just it's nobody understands your journey, except for maybe women who are going through something
Yeah.
similar. And so I think in our group program it's open to anyone regardless of what stage they're in. If they're just having a hard time conceiving, if they're in treatment, if they already have kids and they're trying to have more kids, if they're gearing up for another cycle, because I do think that community piece is really lacking. So
Absolutely. Oh, I love it. I love it. Yeah, there is a group I'm in with another program I had done previously. And I actually left the group. I ended up saying, I love what you're doing, but I can't I never posted anything, because everyone that I saw posting, they were all in their 30s and had, conditions that they were all going, most of them were going through IVF or some form of fertility treatment.
mhm.
I was like, I don't feel like that's my community. But when
Yeah,
you know that you're in an integrated group where you have all of them, that's
right,
I actually love that, because we can be an encouragement to some mamas in other ways, and then they
right.
can encouragement us. And yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
that's awesome.
yeah,
Yay! I love that you're
absolutely.
doing that. Well, I
Thank
look
you.
forward to seeing your program. I'm going to check it out and being able to promote that. And I will make sure all your stuff will be added in as well.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, for sure.
It's such a pleasure. I'm such a fan of what you're doing, and
Aw.
I'm so glad we've had the opportunity to connect and just share this information, and that you're bringing so much of you and your life to it. I think is just really beautiful and helpful to women. So yeah,
Thank you.
this has been such a treat.
Well, I know we'll talk more because I think we could pull out a topic from everything we've talked about today and make it its own. We could just talk about the mind and body connection. We could just talk about
Yeah,
So those are all good. That's awesome. Thank you.
good.
Perfect. That was so good. Would you like to learn more? Find me on Instagram and YouTube at Mom Days Podcast.